Hello, and welcome to Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Before we begin, please hit the like button if you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and you can also join my Patreon. We have a big fundraising goal there. I will talk about that at the end of the episode. I'm not really sure what gets into me sometimes, why I choose to put some of the episodes out that I do, knowing they are going to bring me nothing but grief. But when I really stop and think about it, I do know why. I absolutely abhor misinformation. I didn't even know that about myself until 6 or 7 years ago, because misinformation had never really been an issue for any of us until then. Another reason I'm bringing you this story is because many of you want to see it, and you've told me that. You know I'm always going to bring you what you want, even if it means I'm going to get yelled at for the next 6 months. This story is very close to home for me because it's about a Mormon man who convinced people he was doing something good. He took their money, he took their time, he riled them up, he lied to them, and now he's gaslighting everyone who can see right through him. And one of the real problems is there are those that simply cannot. He still has supporters, and that just makes me sad. I also have a take on this story that most people aren't as familiar with, and that's just how severely Tim Ballard and his actions affected two very high up Mormon leaders. And then how Tim basically ended our state attorney general's career just because he was associated with Tim. It's fascinating stuff, but the real reason I'm doing this episode, despite the fact that it will bring me a lot of hate and a lot of nasty comments, is because of the damage this man has done to the very real cause of fighting child and sex trafficking. This problem is big and it's horrifying, and this man has made a mockery of the cause. He has hurt victims and he has shaken people's faith in those that are actually helping. This will be a dark episode at times, but also a ridiculous episode because you know me, I will be totally and completely incapable of controlling my laughter. It's just how I cope. So put on your crash helmets and warm up your typing fingers because we are diving into the Sound of Freedom scandal and the man behind it, Tim Ballard. I'm your idiot host, Stacy Lee. Let's begin. Tim Ballard is born on what I believe to be the date you just saw, July 19th, 1971. He hasn't really talked about his age, and there are reports that he graduated high school in 1994, which would make him 47 instead of 52. So I'm not sure when his birthday is. Tim was raised a devout Mormon, and after high school, he went on a mission to Chile. Young men in the Mormon church are expected to go on a mission for 2 years when their time comes, which is when they turn 18. Women are expected to go if they're not yet married at 21. Well, it used to be 21. I think I heard they've lowered the age to 19. So Tim goes away to Chile for 2 years. Then he comes home, and like any good Mormon, he went to BYU and is said to have graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Spanish and Political Science. He then went to the Monterey Institute of International Studies and obtained a Master of Arts in Spanish. And then after that, this is where the details get a little more unclear. I'm also going to tell you that this is an overview of these issues. Each one of these issues could be its own episode, so this is an outline of what has happened. There are a lot more details to this story that I won't bring you today because of the format I use here on YouTube. I try to stay around 30 minutes, 40 at the most. If you want me to dive in deeper on this, let me know. I'm always going to bring you what you want to see. Tim Ballard worked as an agent for the Department of Homeland Security for years. Through this work, Tim became aware of the very real problem of child sex trafficking. He saw a lot of the issues through his work at Homeland Security, and I am quite sure, not 100%, but at some point I believe there was a real desire to help. I don't doubt that Tim Ballard saw some terrible things, and I don't doubt that he probably had mostly good intentions at one time. I also truly believe that along with those good intentions, there was a very deep desire to be a hero and to have the accolades and the attention that come with being a hero. In 2013, Tim Ballard claims that he was inside the Mormon temple when God spoke to him, telling him to quit his job at Homeland Security. Now, this is a very big claim, especially inside Mormonism. Tim Ballard stands by his statement that he speaks with God. He stands by his statement that God has spoken to him and that he has been chosen by God for the work that he does. Tim quits his job at Homeland Security and he starts an organization called OUR, Operation Underground Railroad. It is a nonprofit organization which claims it does work to end sex trafficking and child trafficking. I want to be as fair as I can be and lay out what OUR claims it has done over the years. Briefly, OUR claims to have impacted more than 7,000 lives, been involved in more than 6,500 arrests, and conducted more than 4,000 operations. What are those operations? In short, very short, Tim claims that he gathers together a group of highly trained military personnel, operatives, and that together they organize these missions in foreign countries where they infiltrate child trafficking rings, and then once they're on the inside, they rescue the children from the terrible circumstances that they are in. This is Tim Ballard and his supporters' side of the story, very briefly. On the OUR website, there is a statement on the front page that says, quote, "Our work spans the globe as we assist law enforcement in rescue efforts to help provide aftercare to all those affected. While we prioritize children, we work to empower the liberation of anyone suffering at the hands of those looking to sexually exploit." Boy, that'll be ironic later on. Wow. "We offer vital resources to authorities around the world and work tirelessly to raise awareness and meet survivors on their healing journey. Our resolve never falters and we will boldly persevere until those in need are safe." There are other claims on the OUR website that the organization works with U.S. diplomats, with military officers, with law enforcement, of course, and with an aftercare team. Now, I know there are people that truly believe this program is doing what it claims to do. And I'm not here to tell you what to think or say. I do not know what goes on in the organization firsthand. I'm not going to sit here and say that I do. Do I think there has probably been some positive work done through OUR? I would like to believe that. Do I think it is anywhere in the realm of the claims made? Absolutely not. Why do I feel that way? Because there is not only zero proof of the claims made by OUR and Tim Ballard, there is proof that those claims are false. And I'm talking about claims from other governments, directly from officials in countries where Tim Ballard claims he has rescued people, saying that did not happen. Not in one or two countries, in several. What Tim Ballard did from 2013 until the time he decided to make the Sound of Freedom film, which is what we're talking about today, it was probably around 2019, 2020 when he started thinking about making the film. What he did in that period of time, that depends on who you ask. I can tell you that there is some proof. He did, in fact, go on some of these missions with these jump teams that he organized. I can also tell you that there are very serious allegations about things that went on during these missions that include illegal drug use by the team members, inappropriate conduct with females, and a whole lot of lying. I can also tell you what happened here in Utah with regards to Tim Ballard's status. This is something very cultural that is difficult to describe to people outside the Utah Mormon bubble. Mormons are obsessed with Mormons who become celebrities. Mormons don't have a lot of celebrities. Donnie and Marie, Gladys Knight, who was a convert, that's about it as far as active, actual celebrities go. There are a lot of celebrities that have some sort of Mormonism in their history, or they butted up against Mormonism at some time. That is very, very different than an active Mormon who is also a celebrity. I guess if you want to consider Glenn Beck a celebrity, I think he's still active. I'm not 100% on that. John Heater that played Napoleon Dynamite, I don't know if he's still active. But what I'm saying is there are not many active Mormon celebrities. So when someone who is an active practicing Mormon starts to get some celebrity status, it is a big deal in the Mormon Utah community. Utah Mormons are very, very different from Mormons everywhere else. It's very different. I will talk about that when I do one of the episodes you have all asked for, where I talk about my own experience leaving the Mormon church. I got a tidal wave of yes, you want to hear that story. I'm working on it. Well, Tim Ballard started to get his name in the press and his status began to grow. Not only was his name getting around, it was extra, extra special because Tim Ballard wasn't getting famous for singing or acting. He was getting famous for doing good. He was getting famous for being a do-gooder. And there is nothing Mormons love more than being adjacent to goodness. It is crack for them. Tim started, this is so corny. Tim started making public appearances. Apparently he made one in St. George when I was living in Vegas, but he would enter the town he was appearing at to give a speech or whatever it was in a helicopter that he would have landed like in the town square. We have to stop because do I have a treat for you? After I recorded this episode, a friend of mine contacted me that knew I was doing the episode and said, Stacy, I have photographs from this day, lots and lots of photographs. So you are in for such a treat. No one has seen these photos in years, if ever at all. Enjoy. This is what really bothers me about this situation. Look at all these people coming to this event. Do you think for 1 second that any of these people thought this man was a liar and a con man? These folks were there because they thought he was doing something good and they wanted to show their support to someone who was working hard to save children. These are good people. These are decent people that thought they were supporting a good cause and they got took. And it makes me really angry. Oh my goodness, you guys, I'm sorry. I just think this is the dorkiest. This is one of the most uncool things I think I've ever seen in my life. I have never seen anyone so desperate to be worshipped and treated like a hero. This is the corniest freaking thing I have ever seen. I feel bad for the people that went, and I'm sure some of them still support him and are mad at the things that I'm saying, and I couldn't care less. This is my opinion. I think this is so dorky and so telling of how badly he wanted to be treated like a hero. And can we get him a t-shirt that fits? This is really, really embarrassing to me. I just don't know what else to say. And then, of course, we've got the hero worship imagery, these signs, these photos, and then of course him hugging Sean Reyes, our state attorney general, who he later destroys. I am sorry, I just think that is so embarrassing. His team would put out press and promotion that Tim Ballard was coming to town and that you could see him land in his helicopter at this place or that place, and people just ate it up. I know I'm an asshole sometimes. I find this to be so corny. Look, this is not something I would ever be interested in seeing, but I realize there are people that are, and I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about him. I just think he's a dork. Helicopters are cool. I might go just to see the helicopter, but not to see Tim Ballard. As Tim made these appearances and got more locally famous, I don't think anyone outside the Mormon community knew who he was, but he was getting more famous here in Utah. He was getting celebrity status. And as that celebrity grew, so did Tim's ego. And it was big to begin with, but it really blew up. I also want to quickly discuss something I think is very important, and that is the issue of stolen valor. It has been said that Tim Ballard has in fact impersonated military personnel, which is something I take very seriously. My father, my uncles, my grandfathers are all veterans, and I now have a brother-in-law and a son-in-law who are veterans as well. So I asked my daughter's partner for a quote on what he thinks of Tim Ballard, and this is what he said. I think most people that try and impersonate military personnel have some sort of mental illness. Just like an adult that can't hold a job and pretends to be an astronaut all day, which might be the extreme, there is some sort of disconnection from reality. Maybe the person pretending to be a veteran wanted to be in the military as a child, and now that they're an adult and think they can get away with a lie, they live that experience through the lie. Jorge Zenteno, E5 Sergeant, U.S. Marine Corps veteran. On top of everything else I find vile about Tim Ballard, the stolen valor allegations are among the most serious. In May of 2015, Tim Ballard testified before Congress on global human rights and he gave recommendations for practices on how to rescue children from trafficking rings. He testified again in 2019 with relation to the US-Mexico border. It's not as if he had no credibility at all. These appearances just added to that credibility among the masses. And then he began appearing at the White House with Donald Trump, posting photos of him with Trump. And his name was getting more and more well-known. You know, I abhor politics in all form, and I rarely even tiptoe into that realm here. But what we do have to talk about, because it's an element of this, the far right worships their politics. I'm not saying Republicans do. I'm talking about the far right. They believe their politicians are chosen by God. They call Donald Trump the Messiah. They believe that he was handpicked by God to save the country from the evil, baby-eating, blood-drinking Democrats. We're going to go into this a little bit more. So I'm not harping on politics, but there is, in fact, an element of this story that we have to discuss, and that is the fact that Tim's status as a celebrity grew because he was brushing up against Donald Trump, who some people on the far right see as literally Jesus, God adjacent, like handpicked. So without getting into the politics of it, that added to Tim's celebrity. As this was all happening, as early as 2016, there were rumblings. Something was not right here, and those close to Tim and OUR knew it. The claims Tim was making could not be verified, and there was something else disturbing. Tim had little to no regard for victim privacy. He is a very performative person, and he has absolutely no qualms posting performative photos of him working with children from poor areas, looking sad and helpless, and I find it gross. Before somebody that knows me comes at me, I do a lot of work with the homeless in Las Vegas. I would post something about what I had done that Sunday. I call it my church, where I go down into the homeless camps and take food that I make. And somebody that didn't like me came on and said that it was performative. So I completely stopped posting about all my work with the homeless for 2 years. I didn't post a thing. And then I ran into somebody up here in St. George, and they were like, why don't you post about that? It's so inspirational. The day you posted that, I went out and made a donation. And I'm like, because somebody came on and told me it was performative and I was trying to make myself look good. And this person was like, you cannot stop talking about what you're doing because of what somebody says. And I wrestle with it. I still wrestle with it. I'm very careful never to post anyone's faces. I do not do the thing where I walk up and feed someone with a camera on me. I don't do any of that. I've taken it down to now I just post like the food that I'm making, maybe the drive to the camp, and I'll post a little bit of the camp with no faces in it and just kind of say, hey, you know, we're just leaving. So, okay, I just want to be transparent and clear that I have also done things and been accused of performative behavior. I disagree with it. I did not think it was performative. I've never shown anyone's faces, but you know me, you're getting the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I have had someone accuse me of being performative before. I'm not trying to be hypocritical by saying Tim posts these performative photos because I truly believe they are performative. The very first time I heard about Tim Ballard was at a meeting when I lived in Las Vegas. I do a lot of work with a youth crisis center there, and some of the people were talking about this guy as if he was a god. These were not Mormon people. I have a good nose for bullshit. I'm not smarter than anybody else. I don't have special abilities. I've just been a road musician for a lot of years, and I've come up on a lot of people that have big stories to tell that aren't true. When I started to hear these stories about this Tim Ballard guy, immediately something was off to me. Now, I kept my mouth shut at the time because even if he was a guy with a big ego or he was posting these very performative photos, if he's doing good, so what? So what? That's the way I looked at it. I'll just keep my mouth shut. Right after that meeting, after I'd heard about Tim, I saw somebody post on Facebook that they were working with OUR. So I thought to myself, okay, this is a growing organization. It sounds like they're doing really good work. Good for them. I think a lot of people felt that way. And I am not here to make fun of anyone that believed in OUR. I am not here to tell anyone if they donated to OUR that they were fooled or stupid or any of that. I am here to talk about Tim Ballard as a fantastic con man and as someone who has been the victim of a con man to an extent that I've never talked about here. I have no place to talk, and I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad about supporting OUR. Evil people can make others believe anything. It is not your fault if you didn't see through Tim Ballard in the beginning. In October of 2020, the county attorney in Davis County, that's here in Utah, received so many complaints about OUR that the office was basically forced into opening an investigation. People were going to the county attorney up north in Salt Lake, telling representatives in that office that Tim was involved in some very, very illegal fundraising practices. And this is where we're going to talk about our former Attorney General, Sean Reyes. Despite the fact that so many citizens had gone to the county attorney and filed complaints against Tim Ballard, the investigation never really went anywhere. People started to get angry. They had proof, real proof that there was a problem and couldn't figure out why nothing was being done. Well, not many of these people knew at the time Sean Reyes and Tim Ballard were very close friends. They had had a close relationship for years. And when you're in a powerful position like State Attorney General, you can make a lot of things disappear if you want to. That is an office with a lot of power and a lot of privilege. Tim and Sean had been friends for many, many years, and Sean was helping Tim in ways that he should not have been. I'm not going to go into the details because it's too lengthy. This is something we could do its own episode on. I also need to be really, really careful that I have those details correct because I don't want to make any allegations that are not spot on. These complainants were coming up against very powerful people and they were losing the fight. At some point in 2019, 2020, Tim Ballard got very interested in turning his life story, well, his version of it anyway, into a film. Now, again, this could be an episode on its own, but let's talk briefly about how he went about getting this film made. 20th Century Fox showed some interest in it originally in the project, but then Disney bought that studio and they said, absolutely not. The project kind of languished in Disney for years. And boy, did they dodge a bullet there. Now, this movie was going to be called The Sound of Freedom, and it was going to be about Tim Ballard's life as a hero, rescuing children from child sex trafficking in foreign countries. I have not seen the film, and I will not see the film. I don't see the point in seeing the film because I don't enjoy that kind of stuff, and I know there's nothing true in the film. So for me, it has no inherent value. The writer and director is a Mexican man named Alejandro Monteverde, and he put Tim in touch with some funding. This man, Fabian Marta, gave a very large sum of money to get the movie made. Fabian was then arrested for what else? Child kidnapping. I'm not laughing at the child kidnapping. I'm just laughing about the fact that the call is always coming from inside the house. Anyone who screams about homophobia is having some gay feelings themselves. People that scream and yell about drag queens and trans people are having some of those feelings themselves. And people that scream and yell about fake child trafficking are doing some trafficking themselves. Now, as far as I know, eventually, at least some of these charges were dropped against Fabian. So he donates some money, and then the film was basically crowdfunded. A lot of people believing that Tim Ballard was the real deal. He testified in front of Congress, gave money to this man to get this film made. The film is also associated with Angel Studios, which is a big thing here in Utah. There are so many scandals tied up with Angel Studios. If you want to see an episode on that, I will do it. We don't have time to get into that here today, but the film was finally a go, and Tim Ballard went seeking actors. I'm going to kind of leave Mira Sorvino alone because she has really worked to distance herself from this project, but we're going to talk about Jim Caviezel. Jim Caviezel is a crackpot. He is not a well man. He is anti-Semitic. He has made racist statements. He's besties with Mel Gibson. So there's that. Jim Caviezel strongly believes that Donald Trump was hand-chosen by God to become the president. Jim Caviezel is a raving QAnon conspiracy theorist. This anti-Semitic loon believes that there is a Satan-worshiping group of Hollywood elites that run a massive child trafficking ring with what purpose? I cannot. To drain the blood of children and harvest their chemical adrenochrome in order to stay young. There is no such thing as oxidized adrenaline becoming adrenochrome that has youth-generating effects. It does not exist. It is not scientifically possible. It is absolute bullshit. It comes from a conspiracy theory from a long time ago. It's been proven to be wrong over and over. This conspiracy theory is embarrassing, and it would be laughable if it weren't deeply rooted in anti-Semitism, claiming that Jews drink the blood of Christians. Anyone who believes in this bullshit needs to be institutionalized. It is horrifying. Jim Caviezel started appearing on stage with Donald Trump at his rallies, and he went on CNN urging people to get more involved in stopping the evil Democrats from harvesting adrenochrome from children. Where is that spaceship? I need the spaceship right now. At least 300 of you told me that if the spaceship ever comes, you'll get on it with me. Sometimes we just need a break from the craziness here on Earth. Just take us for a ride. Maybe just for like a year. Jim Caviezel started tweeting that adrenochrome is a chemical compound 10 times more potent than heroin. I would love to know how Jim Caviezel, an actor, did the scientific research on that. It is embarrassing. He's also publicly opposed the use of stem cell research for cures for things like Parkinson's disease and cancer because, he's an actor. His opinions on science really mean something. He's got the internet. He doesn't need science. He doesn't need research. He doesn't need published papers. He's got the internet. This guy is certifiable. It's ridiculous, but it's also really sad. He's a very sick man and he needs help. He won't listen to anyone that says that to him, so it's pointless, but yeah. So the film The Sound of Freedom is made with Jim Caviezel as its star. He plays Tim Ballard. Tim Ballard has found his movie star. He has found the guy that is just as crazy and just as rooted in conspiracy theory as he is. And the movie gets made and it comes out on what date? Well, July 4th, of course, 2023. By the time the film is released, word of Tim Ballard's association with Donald Trump and Jim Caviezel has ensured that this film would have a very one-sided audience. I know a lot of people who have seen it. I won't get into what they think of the film. A couple people I talked to liked it. I won't go into the rest of it. Look, it's a film. Films are meant to entertain, and if you found some entertainment value out of it, I think that's great. If you got riled up and believe the film is about a truth when it's really full of lies, I think that sucks. And that is why this is such a problem. Child trafficking is a very real problem, but I'm going to throw a couple of numbers at you. Tim Ballard would tell people that there were 25 million children and women enslaved in Venezuela in child sex trafficking rings, and the government says it's more like 20,000. So 20,000, 25 million. He's such a liar, and he has done a lot of damage telling these lies. This is a man who is gaining fame and fortune on the backs of real child victims, and I find it to be the most vile, disgusting, aberrant thing I can think of. There are groups doing real and actual work. There are people right now sitting in a foreign country somewhere infiltrating a ring of monsters, risking their own lives away from their families to try and help these children. That is happening. Do you know who any of those people are? Of course you don't, because their work is undercover and their work involves child victims. They aren't flying into town square in a goddamn helicopter. They aren't on stage with Donald Trump waving to the crowds. They aren't making movies full of lies about things that never happened in order to aggrandize their own legacy and gain fame for themselves. That is not what real advocates do. Real advocates shine a light on the victims. Real advocates shine a light on the problem. They do not shine a light on themselves. Real advocacy is about putting the work in the spotlight, not about putting yourself in the spotlight, period. People went to see the film. It has made $249 million so far. It cost $14.5 million to make. The standard profit margin on films, according to Forbes, is 5%. 5% after distribution, promotion, etc., etc. So let's do Da-da-da-da-da-da. My version of math. This could be completely off. I could really embarrass myself right here, but I don't really get embarrassed because I've already told you I can't do math. If Sound of Freedom has made $249 million, that means it has a 95% profit. $14,500,000, the cost to make the movie, is 5.82% of $249 million. Now, let me know if I'm wrong on that math. These numbers are astronomical. Let's say $50 million of that went to costs. Let's say 50 million of the 249 that it made went to distribution and actors and all of that, which it didn't because movies make less than that. And let's say it did. Let's say 50 million went. Let's say 100 million went. Let's say 100 million went to costs. Where is the rest of that money? Where is the $100 to $150 million, assuming this movie just had astronomical costs? Where's that money? Monteverde, the writer, claims the film only made a 20% profit. Amazon also bought the rights to distribute the film for $8 million. So let's use Monteverde's fake numbers. If the film made a 20% profit, which it didn't, that's $3 million. Add that to Amazon's $8 million and you've got $11 million. Where did that money go? It sure as hell did not go to the victims of child sex trafficking. And if you don't think that that's disgusting, you and I cannot be friends. If you are going to make a film claiming it's all about the victims, then every nickel that film makes, minus salaries and distribution, artists shouldn't work for free, should go to those victims. I said what I said. I will tell you something else that I know because I live in Utah and have connections with people involved. One of Tim Ballard's attorneys is living in a mansion on the hill, and he has a very hoity-toity wife who likes to flaunt their wealth, and he is facing some very serious federal charges. He has been able to keep them very, very quiet, and that is why I will not be the first person to say his name. I'm going to wait and see what happens, but a lot of money was made on this movie, and none of it went to help kids. If you are making money off of the backs of children who are being abused and trafficked and victimized, that makes you almost as vile as the traffickers. If you believe that Democrats are drinking blood and harvesting organs from children that they keep in the basement, if you're able to believe that, I'm going to need you to wrap your mind around how vile it is to make money off of kids. The money issue alone is reason enough for me to despise this production and the people involved in it, but the money issue is far from the only problem. After the movie came out and people fought online, screaming at people like me that I must be pro-child trafficking if I didn't support this film, something was very quietly brewing in Salt Lake City. You need to know that whenever the Mormon Church is involved in a scandal, it is covered better than anything the CIA covers. I'm half joking, I'm half not. The Mormon Church is absolutely elite when it comes to covering up scandal, and this was a big one. Officials and leaders in the church began to hear rumblings that Tim Ballard is a con artist, and this is a very huge problem for Mormon leaders. Not only is one of their own about to embarrass the church on the national and international stage, some very high up authorities in the church had close ties to Tim Ballard. Now, this gets a little deep, and, again, we could do a part 2. This is a man most of you do not know, but he is very famous in Mormonism. His name was Boyd K. Packer. He was as big in the Mormon church as you can get. He was everything but the prophet. He was an apostle. He served as president of the Quorum of the 12. You can look these things up if you're more interested. And he was a prolific author. He's written, I counted 17 books. There might be more than that. And he was very well respected. Boyd K. Packer died in 2015, but not before becoming very close friends with Tim Ballard. Boyd K. Packer and his team would later deny this, but there is very real evidence that the creation of OUR in 2013 was actually Boyd K. Packer's idea. Boyd K. Packer has a nephew, this man named Lynn Packer, and Lynn has done some very important investigative work into Mormon authorities. Lynn Packer has uncovered proof that Boyd K. Packer, his uncle, not only encouraged Tim Ballard, but went on to approach very rich Mormons like Russell Brunson to ask them for funding so Tim could get this thing off the ground. Now, Russell Brunson, you can look him up if you're interested, has said that this happened on film. And he has also said that he met with Boyd K. Packer and Tim Ballard together. These things happened. So when the rumblings about Tim Ballard being a con man started to make their way to the heads of the Mormon church, Tim's ties to Boyd K. Packer became a very big problem. Within a few months of the release of The Sound of Freedom, Vice News did an in-depth investigation into Tim and OUR and found some very damning evidence. Now, Vice News had been investigating Tim Ballard and OUR since 2020. Their first article talking about Tim's lying came out back in December of 2020. Their second article was in June of 2021. They were onto him, but they were still kind of watching and waiting. Then Vice reported that Tim Ballard was lying about a collaboration he had with American Airlines. Tim was just bold-faced lying at that point in time. American Airlines had to release a statement and say, we have no affiliation with this man. None. Vice reported that Tony Robbins and Donald Trump were helping Tim Ballard after he saved 10 women from a slavery ring, et cetera, et cetera. That was Tim's claim. But there was no slavery ring. There were no victims, no proof that any of that ever happened. Then when the film came out, all of these rumors and all of these murmurings really came to a head. There were people that worked with Tim Ballard that had kept quiet. And I think seeing the success of the film, knowing it was making all of this money and that none of it would be going to victims, and probably also seeing this con man that they knew was full of shit get all of these accolades, people started to come forward. Now, if you ask Tim Ballard supporters, these people came forward to try and destroy Tim Ballard because they are also pro-child trafficking and they want to bring Tim down. Well, the problem with that is these people have proof. The people coming forward had proof that was so damning and the allegations were so serious that in July of 2023, Tim Ballard stepped down from his position at OUR, the company that he started, and that was a bombshell. So what are the allegations? Women began to come forward saying that while working with Tim Ballard, he had not only sexually assaulted them, but that he had violently sexually assaulted them. This woman named Celeste Boris and her husband Mike made allegations that Celeste, who was one of Tim's assistants, was violated over and over, that the leaders at OUR were fully aware of the assaults and did nothing to stop them. Celeste maintains these allegations are true and even says Tim's wife, Catherine, was complicit in the misconduct. Celeste filed a police report with the Linden Police in Utah, charging Tim Ballard with sexual assault. Don't believe her? Well, she has an article of her own clothing with Tim Ballard's semen on it, because of course she does. As if this wasn't all just disgusting enough, we all are then subjected to have to see this.
Yeah, baby.
Oh my God. If I had to see it, you have to see it because you are my support community. And after seeing this, I need all the support I can get. This is a Mormon guy's version of what a man has for tattoos. These tattoos are fake. What man has a heart on his thigh? It had a barbed wire. I can just see him getting that put on like, this is so badass. A heart. Just a heart on his thigh. Not incorporated into anything. He is such a dork. He's just a doofus cornball. All right, here I go. Where are his garments? Why is he in little undies? Where are his garments that he is supposed to have on at all times as an active Mormon man? Why is he taking pictures of himself like this? By September 2023, multiple women had come forward with images like this one and stories about how they went on these missions with Tim Ballard and that they had to pretend to be his wife. Oh my Lord. The women allege that while trying to help Tim Ballard in what they believed to be a very noble cause, their words, that they were subjected to sexual harassment, spiritual manipulation, grooming, and sexual misconduct. The women said Tim would make them sleep in the same bed with him. He would send them photos like the one I showed you. He had them shower with him. One of the women that he sent his little undies picture to, the caption said, "How far are you willing to go to save the children?" My secondhand embarrassment is so bad right now. I got to take a break. I'm too embarrassed to talk right now. This guy is a rat. You know what? No, that's an insult to rats. Rats are industrious and intelligent. He's a dirtbag. He's as low as you can go. And I really hope you religious people are right. I hope there is something after this, because people like Tim Ballard deserve everything that's coming to them for preying on people with good hearts and people that are religious and people that are vulnerable to believe these kinds of things. Of course, Tim cried that these women were only trying to come forward and ruin him because they're pro-child trafficking. They want money. Well, that's laughable and seems a very funny claim, seeing as how Tim texted Celeste telling her he would pay her any amount of money she wanted in order to stay quiet, and she didn't take any money. So you should also know that there are verified stories of Tim Ballard and his cronies spending a lot of time in strip clubs, because they had to, you guys. They had to spend hours and hours and hours a day in a strip club. Not just go in and try to get into the ring and find out if there's people being trafficked there. No, they had to spend hours and hours and hours there. And that there is a verified story of a child being brought to Tim and his little gang. This child is and these guys touch her breasts. So you tell me, under what sun, in what circle of hell, is an actual advocate against child trafficking going to do that? These are a bunch of sick fucks getting their Rambo fantasy on and being paid to travel around the world and go to strip clubs, and the whole thing makes me want to puke. Well, I actually made it a lot farther into this episode before getting mad than I thought I would. Because you guys know I am the consummate professional. Sean Reyes, Utah's Attorney General, Reyes begins feeling the heat because he's actually been on some of these missions with Ballard. He releases this 10-minute video, boobing it up, saying that yes, he has ties to Ballard. He was, was friends with him. He believed in him. And part of the reason he's stepping down from office is because of Ballard. Sean Reyes also claims that he sat with some of the victims of Tim Ballard and listened to their stories, and that he believes them because they have proof. So this scandal was so big, it brought down the Attorney General of the state of Utah. Just days later, the Mormon Church formally denounced Tim Ballard. Now, this is important. There are so many facets to this story. The Mormon Church has another official that is very revered and respected, and his name is M. Russell Ballard. M. Russell Ballard is not related to Tim Ballard, but M. Russell Ballard had worked with and supported the efforts of Tim Ballard. This was very, very bad for the church, and the church was scrambling to distance itself and its leaders as quickly as possible. The Mormon Church does not talk about its members, even when they're angry with them. The Mormon Church released a statement about Tim Ballard, and I don't think since Mark Hoffman have I seen anything worded so strongly. It might not seem strong to you, but it is. The church formally denounced Tim Ballard. That just does not happen. The statement the church released, in part, says, quote, "The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints never endorsed, supported, or represented OUR, Tim Ballard, or any projects associated with them. Once it became clear that Tim Ballard had betrayed his friendship with M. Russell Ballard through the unauthorized use of President Ballard's name for Tim Ballard's personal advantage and activity regarded as morally unacceptable, President Ballard withdrew his association." Now, again, that is not the full statement, but this is just something that does not happen. That is such a big deal for the Mormon Church to come out and say something like that against one of its members. Now, the other thing that you need to know is the Mormon Church does not ever talk about when it excommunicates someone. Tim Ballard will not talk about whether or not he's been excommunicated. There is no question he has been excommunicated. There is no way the church is going to release a statement strongly worded like that against one of its members and not excommunicate them. I would stake my life on the fact that he's been excommunicated. Now, we are running out of time, already over time, I'm sure. But if you would like to hear more about this story, an individual facet of it, comment. I'm more than happy to bring you anything you want to see. So where does this all stand now? Well, before the church denounced Tim Ballard, he was talking about running for Senate. He didn't have a snowball's chance in hell of that now. But remember when I told you a few episodes ago that I foresee a split coming in the Mormon Church with the super kooks going one way and the more mainstream people going the other? Tim Ballard has a lot to do with that, and we're going to talk about that in that episode. The points I want to make sure that I've driven home are this. The Mormon Church has formally denounced Tim Ballard, which is something it never does. OUR released a statement saying its attorneys have affirmed the validity of the sexual assault allegations against Tim Ballard and has done a lot to distance itself from Tim Ballard. OUR is still in operation. There is not one single scintilla of proof that Tim Ballard has ever rescued a single person from a sex trafficking ring. There is proof that he has taken some children out of homes where he believes they were being victimized, but then he has given no aftercare or provided for those children in any way, and some of them end up on the streets. The millions of dollars this movie made have not gone in any way, shape, or form to help the victims of child sex trafficking. Tim Ballard is a con man and a liar and an example of what we must watch out for. The reason I bring you these episodes that will surely bring me a lot of hate and nasty comments is that it's important for these points to get out. The truth must always be talked about and readily available. Our community is growing, and as it does, I feel the weight of responsibility to ensure that we always call out dangerous people here, be they killers or cult leaders or con men. I know who you guys are, and I know this matters to you as much as it matters to me. You know I have said this many times before, and you may not feel the same way that I do, but I am my brother's keeper, and I feel a responsibility to disseminate information about dangerous people when I am confident that the information is correct, and there is a glut of evidence here. Tim Ballard is a bad man. Tim Ballard is a dangerous man. He has hurt people, he has damaged the cause, and he has stolen. He's stolen money and trust from everyone around him. And with that said, I can promise you one thing. We have not seen the last of Tim Ballard. Con artists are great at reinventing themselves, and like the cockroaches they are, he will live through this scandal. He will pop his little face up again somewhere, somehow in the future. And when he does, I'll be waiting to discuss whatever new con he has come up with. To end this episode, I would like you to know that I am making a donation on behalf of our community to Children of the Night, which is based in Los Angeles and has a 100% positive rating on charitynavigator.org, an organization that monitors and rates charitable foundations. It's my hope that will be the first of many donations. I will continue to monitor this story and bring you updates as they occur. We have to be vigilant and we have to be smart. We can all do something to raise awareness about these types of people and the damage they do. Here at Dark Hearts, we talk about them in hopes that people who may be vulnerable or who may believe their good intentions find videos like these and learn the truth. To everyone who has been hurt by Tim Ballard, I hope you are healing and I hope you are moving on the best you can. You didn't deserve to be victimized and you didn't deserve to be hurt just because you believed in a bad man pretending to be a good man. And to the victims of child trafficking, we know you're out there. You have not been forgotten. And we all hope that somewhere there is a real hero on their way to finding the door you are locked behind. Oh, Lordy. Thank you for joining me today on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from your somewhat favorite, sometimes hated crazy old lady. And you can also join my Patreon. We're doing a fundraiser here. This is the thumbnail. Go and watch this video. It has all the details. We are raising money to donate to police departments that have cold case DNA in storage. There are thousands of sexual assault kits sitting in refrigeration that have never been tested. They cost between $500 and $750 a kit to test. We're going to raise the money, we're going to vote on a case, we're going to give that money to that department and hopefully solve a crime. The other thing that happens is we get that perpetrator's DNA in the system forever. And if they've committed other crimes, we might help with that. I always want you to know, I don't care if you can't donate $20. A buck is a buck. If everybody donates $1, we're there. You can Venmo me, you can Cash App me, you can buy me a coffee, you can PayPal me. It all goes to the cause. All the information's in the video. I appreciate you guys and I hope you're doing well. We're almost to the end of the crappy season and spring is right around the corner. I love you. I hope you're taking care of yourselves. Stay safe and be kind to each other. And I will see you next time on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee.